Marcus Webb is 31 years old now, and he teaches ninth grade English at a public high school in East Cleveland. And on the first day of every school year, he puts a single object on his desk before the students arrive. A photograph printed on standard copy paper, slightly faded from being handled, of a man holding a microphone on a television stage. In the photograph, the man has removed the microphone from its stand. He is not speaking into it. A is holding it at his side, loose, the way you hold something when the formal use of it is finished and you have decided to do something else entirely. Every year, a student asks about the photograph. Every year, Marcus Webb says, "That's the moment I understood what it means to use the thing you've been given." He does not say more than that on the first day. He waits. The students who are paying attention come back later and ask the full question. He tells them the full story then, because the full story is not a first-day story. It requires the room to be ready. This is the full story. On February 19, 2024, a producer at Family Feud named Dana Okafor finished watching the raw tape from that afternoon's taping and walked down the hallway to the executive producer's office and knocked on the open door. And sighed, "You need to see the second round of the afternoon session." She said it the way you say something when you are not sure yet what category it belongs in. The executive producer looked up from his desk. Dana said, "I've been on this show for 14 years and I don't know what to call what just happened in that room." She paused. "But I know we can't cut it." She was right. They didn't cut it. And what happened that afternoon, beginning 60 seconds after a 16-year-old boy named Jordan Webb answered a survey question, and ending 45 minutes later when the stage had been cleared of everyone except Steve Harvey and Jordan's father, Marcus Sr., sitting together on the stage stairs, would be seen by 194 million people before the end of the following week. Not because the show released it, but because a crew member named Dana Okafor went home that night and uploaded it herself, against protocol without telling anyone, and deleted her own copy afterward. Ann told the executive producer what she had done the next morning, and said she would accept whatever consequences followed, and that she would do it again. Nobody in that studio had known what was about to happen. The object on the desk in Steve Harvey's dressing room that morning was an index card. This was not unusual. Steve kept index cards everywhere. Notes to himself, names of contestants, reminders for the warm-up. This particular card had been placed there by his assistant the night before and contained a single piece of information that had come through the contestant intake process. Webb family, Cleveland. Father, Marcus Sr., 44, high school football coach. Son, Jordan, 16. Note from intake. Jordan applied to 6 academic summer programs this year. Was rejected from all 6. Father believes the rejections were not based on qualifications. Steve Harvey had read the card at 7:50 a.m. He had set it face down on the desk. He had sat with it for a moment. Then he had picked it up, read it again, and put it in his jacket pocket. He carried it onto the stage. He had not told anyone he was carrying it. The Webb family had driven from East Cleveland to Los Angeles on a budget that required them to book the cheapest available flights, which meant a connection through Dallas and an arrival time of 11:45 p.m. the night before the taping. Marcus Sr. had booked the flights 8 weeks earlier, when the contestant notification came through, and had told his wife Diane that the connection was an adventure. Diane had said the word adventure back to him in a tone that ended the conversation. Jordan had slept through the Dallas layover entirely, folded into an airport chair with his jacket over his face, which Marcus Sr. had photographed and which Diane had said he was not allowed to show anyone, which meant he had shown everyone at the school where he coached. The Webb family's 5th member for the taping was Jordan's younger sister Amara, 13 years old, who had prepared for the show with the intensity of a person training for a professional competition. She had studied 3 seasons of episodes and maintained a spreadsheet of top answers by category. She had shared the spreadsheet with the family. Jordan had said the spreadsheet was cheating. Amara had said the spreadsheet was research. Marcos Sr. had said both of them were right and that this conversation was over. The opposing family was the Castellanos from San Antonio, a warm, sprawling family anchored by a grandmother named Dolores, who was 80 and had the energy of someone who had made a decision at some point to simply outwork age. Dolores had greeted the Webb family during warm-up by taking both of Marcos Sr.'s hands and telling him he had a beautiful family. Marcos Sr. had said she was very kind. Dolores had said she was not kind. She was accurate, and that there was a difference. And this had made Marcos Sr. laugh in the specific way that men laugh when they have been precisely seen by an elderly woman they met 30 seconds ago. Jordan Webb had sat through the warm-up with the specific posture of a 16-year-old who is trying to appear unbothered and is not entirely succeeding. It was tall, 6'1" already, his father's build, and he had the quality that some teenagers have of seeming older than they are in stillness and exactly their age in motion. He had smiled during the introductions. He had answered questions from the warm-up coordinator with the polished ease of a boy who had been coached to present well in rooms. He had not said anything about the 6 rejection letters. He had not mentioned them to anyone at the school or in his friend group. He had told his parents he was fine. He had said it with a period. Marcos Sr. had not believed the period. He had been sitting with the 6 rejection letters for 3 months. Not with the letters themselves. Jordan had not shown them to him. Diane had found them, printed and folded, in a desk drawer, and had shown them to Marcos Sr. without Jordan knowing. Marcos Sr. had read them carefully. The letters across 6 different programs had used varying language, but the language had a consistent shape. Jordan's academic record was acknowledged. East test scores were noted, and the decision was attributed to competitive applicant pools and fit with program objectives. Marcos Sr. had coached football for 19 years. He had recruited across school districts. He knew what fit with program objectives meant and what it was used to mean when it was used a certain way. He had sat with his knowledge for 3 months and had not known what to do with it until he had received the Family Feud contestant notification and had thought, at least we'll have one good day. He had not said any of this to Jordan. He had said they were going because it was an adventure. Diane had used the tone again. Jordan Webb had, the week before the taping, found the printouts of his rejection letters missing from his desk drawer and had understood immediately that his mother had found them and that his father therefore knew. He had said nothing. His father had said nothing. They had driven to the airport in a silence that both of them were fluent in. Not a cold silence, a careful one. The kind that exists between people who love each other and are each waiting for the right moment to speak and are not yet sure what the right moment looks like. The index card in Steve Harvey's pocket had not told him any of this. It had told him, Father believes the rejections were not based on qualifications. That was all. The rest, Steve Harvey would learn the way he learned most things on that stage, by asking the question that nobody else in the room had thought to ask, at the moment when asking it would mean the most. The survey category in the second round was, name something a teenager works hard for that adults take for granted. Jordan Webb hit the buzzer. He said, a future. It was not on the board. The board showed education, driver's license, independence, respect, money. Steve Harvey said, a future, survey says, and the board showed the X, and the audience made the sound audiences make, and Jordan nodded once. The note of a person absorbing something they have absorbed before and have developed a technique for absorbing. He stepped back from the buzzer. Steve Harvey looked at him. He did not move to the next question. He stood at the podium and looked at Jordan Webb for a moment that was slightly longer than the format required, and then he said, quietly, why'd you say that one? Jordan sighed. I don't know. It just came out. Steve Harvey said, no, it didn't. The audience went quiet in a way it hadn't all episode. Jordan Webb looked at his father. Marcos Sr. was standing at the podium with his hands on the edge of the surface, and his face doing something that Jordan had not seen his father's face do in public before. Something that was not quite composed, and not quite not composed. Something that was waiting. Jordan sighed. I applied to 6 programs this summer. Academic programs. I got rejected from all 6. Steve Harvey said, how'd you do in school this year? Jordan said, 4.0. Steve Harvey said, say that again. Jordan said, 4.0 GPA. I scored in the 94th percentile on the PSA. I won the regional science fair in October. I've been in the gifted program since 4th grade. He said it without pride, without resentment, with the flat precision of someone reading from a record, which was, in fact, what he was doing. The record was in his head. He had memorized it because when the rejections came, he had gone back to it, looking for the variable that explained the outcome, and he had not found it. Steve Harvey removed the microphone from its stand. He held it at his side. The studio fell completely silent. Not on my watch. Never, he said it quietly. Not to the audience. Not to the cameras. To Jordan Webb standing in front of him at the podium, 16 years old, reciting a record that should have opened 6 doors and had opened none. He wasn't done. Steve Harvey turned and walked to stage left, where the production wall was. Anhate picked up the stage phone and called the office of a state senator from Ohio, whose number his assistant had found in 40 seconds on her phone, and texted to the stage phone while Steve was still walking. He put it on speaker. He said the senator's name. He said Jordan Webb's name. He said 16 years old, 4.0 GPA, 94th percentile, regional science fair winner, gifted program since 4th grade, rejected from 6 academic summer programs in the same cycle. I want someone in that office to tell me what the next step is, because I am standing on a television stage and I am not getting off it until I know there is a next step. The senator's chief of staff, who had answered the call, sighed she would personally pass the information to the senator's education policy director and that they would be in touch within 24 hours. Steve Harvey said he appreciated that. He said he would be following up personally. He said it once, without elaboration, which was the kind of once that does not require elaboration. And then he stood in the middle of the stage and said to the audience, to the cameras, to the room, and everything beyond it, I'm going to tell you something. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and I know what it is to be in a room that is supposed to be open and find out it has a lock on it that nobody told you about. I was sleeping in a parking lot in Cleveland in a snowstorm when I was 29 years old, and I woke up the next morning not sure if I was going to. And the only reason I am standing here today is that I refuse to accept that the lock meant the room wasn't mine. This boy's record is real. His work is real. And I want every person watching this to hear me say clearly, a lock on a door that should be open is not an evaluation of the person on the other side of it. It is a problem with the lock. It wasn't finished. He turned to the audience and said, is there anyone in this room today who has the ability to help this young man? It was not a rhetorical question. He waited. A woman in the 7th row raised her hand. She was 53 years old, and she was at the taping because her daughter had won tickets in a radio contest. And she was the director of undergraduate admissions recruitment at a university in Los Angeles. And she had been sitting in the 7th row for the past 4 minutes with her hand pressed to her sternum. She stood up. Steve Harvey said, come on down here. She came down. She shook Jordan's hand. She said, on microphone, that she could not make an admissions decision on a game show stage, but that she could guarantee that Jordan Webb's name would be in front of every program director she knew by end of business the following day. She cited in the specific voice of someone making a promise that is not a performance. Jordan Webb looked at her. I said, thank you. He said it the way you say something when you have been waiting a long time for the thing the words are responding to. And that was when Amara Webb, 13 years old, who had been standing at the podium next to her brother for the last 12 minutes, without saying anything, leaned into the nearest microphone and said in a voice that carried completely, I saved my lunch money. It's for mommy. The room went absolutely quiet. Steve Harvey turned and looked at Amara. Amara looked back at him with the expression of someone who has just said the thing that was sitting heaviest and feels now lighter. As Steve Harvey said, baby girl, what did you just say? Amara said, Mama's been working extra hours since the application fees. I know she says it's fine. He saved $11.40. She reached into her jacket pocket and produced a small Ziploc bag of coins and folded bills, which she placed on the podium with both hands. She sighed. I know it's not enough. I just wanted to give something. The audience did not applaud. Nobody moved. A woman who had worked the show for 14 years was standing in the wing with both hands over her mouth. And she would later tell Dana Okafor that it was Amara's bag of coins that broke her. Not the phone call, not the speech. The $11.40, placed on a game show podium with both hands by a 13-year-old who had been paying attention. Steve Harvey sat down on the stage stairs and looked at the bag of coins for a long moment. Then he looked at Marcus Sr. and said, how long have you known? Marcus Sr. said, 3 months. Steve Harvey said, and you brought them here anyway. Marcus Sr. said, I wanted them to have a good day first. Steve Harvey looked at him for a moment that had the quality of a recognition. One man looking at another man who has made the same specific calculation, who has chosen the good day over the hard conversation, who loves his family in exactly that way. He said, I know that move. I know it from the inside. He put Amara's bag of coins in his jacket pocket. He said he was keeping it. He said it would go on a shelf in his office next to the things he kept to remind himself why the job was the job. He sighed. $11.40 is the most valuable thing that has been brought onto this stage in 31 years, and I want everyone to know that. He was done making speeches. He was not done. The Castellano family, which had been standing at its podium for 22 minutes without anyone asking anything of them, was represented at this moment by Dolores, 80 years old, who walked from her side of the stage to the website without being invited, without asking, with the unhurried authority of a woman who has lived long enough to know when ceremony is beside the point. She stood next to Diane Webb. She did not say anything. She put her hand on Diane's arm. They stood that way. The hymn that the sound system had been playing softly during the pre-taping warm-up, a standard instrumental, the kind of music that disappears into the room, was still technically playing. Nobody had turned it off. In the silence of the studio, you could just hear it, faint, below everything else. Steve Harvey looked at both families and said, the Castellano family has been standing here for 22 minutes and has not said one word about this game or this prize. And that tells me everything I need to know about who they are. He turned to the Castellano table. He said he was pulling in the show's partner foundation to match the prize for both families. Side, both families were leaving with everything. He said, and I want Dolores to know specifically that what she just did, walking across that stage and standing next to that woman, without being asked, that is worth more than any number on any board in this studio. Dolores sighed from across the stage in a voice that was 80 years old and carried perfectly. That's just what you do. The audience laughed. It was not the laugh of a game show. It was the laugh of 300 people exhaling at the same time after holding their breath for 22 minutes. Dana Okafor went home that night and uploaded the clip from her personal phone. She had filmed 7 minutes of the 45-minute stage event from her position near the production wall. The angle that caught Jordan's face during the phone call, Amara's hands placing the coin bag on the podium, Dolores crossing the stage. She uploaded it without a caption, deleted her copy, and went to sleep. She told the executive producer the next morning. He looked at her for a long moment. He said, I would have done the same thing. He did not say it again. He also did not say it differently. The clip had been viewed by 62 million people by the time Dana walked into the office. Within 48 hours of the broadcast, it had crossed 194 million. It ran on 3 cable news networks. A clip of Amara placing the coin bag on the podium was used in a congressional hearing on educational equity as a visual reference point by a representative from Ohio who said, reading from prepared remarks, that she wanted the committee to look at the image on the screen and consider what it meant that a 13-year-old had understood what the system had failed to. The hearing went on for 4 hours. The clip was referenced 6 times. 3 months after that day, Jordan Webb had received responses from 4 academic summer programs, not rejections, acceptances. He attended 2. He would later say in an interview that the most important thing about the programs was not the curriculum, which was excellent, but the moment he arrived at the first one and understood physically, in the specific way you understand things when you are in a room rather than reading about it, that he was not the outlier, that the room was full of people with his record, that the lock had not been a measurement. He had known this intellectually. Knowing it in the body is different. By the following spring, the Cleveland Promise, a fund established in partnership with the Steve Harvey Foundation and the Consortium of Ohio School Districts, had provided full application fee coverage and pre-application coaching for 412 students from under-resourced public schools applying to competitive academic programs. The fund was named for the city, not the event, because Steve Harvey had said, I don't want it named after a moment. I want it named after the place that taught me what a promise costs. The intake coordinator said, in the fund's first annual report, that the most common thing applicants told her was that they had not applied to certain programs before because they had assumed, based on previous outcomes, that applying was not for them. The fund's job, she wrote, was to make the assumption wrong. A year after the taping, Marcus Webb Sr. was still coaching football in East Cleveland. He had been contacted by 2 universities about assistant coaching positions. He had not taken either. He had said, when asked, that he was where he was supposed to be. He had said it without a period. He had said it the way you say something when you have decided it freely and it fits. The photograph on Marcus Jr.'s desk, Marcus Webb, who is now 31 and teaches ninth grade English, was taken by the stage manager during the 42nd minute of the stage event. After everything had happened and before the room cleared, it shows Steve Harvey holding the microphone at his side. The microphone is not connected to anything. He has been holding it for 32 minutes at that point. He is not going to use it again. He's keeping it in his hand because putting it down would be a kind of ending, and he is not ready for the ending yet. Some rooms have locks that were never meant to keep you out. They were placed there by people who were afraid of what would happen if you got in. Marcus Webb puts the photograph on his desk every September so that his students will ask about it, so that he can wait until the room is ready, so that he can tell them the full story. The full story takes a while. He has learned from a game show stage and a man who took a microphone off its stand and held it at his side that the full story is worth taking the time. If this moment of grace, where confrontation could have lived and something larger was chosen instead, moved you, subscribe and hit thumbs up. Share with someone who needs to remember that the loudest answer is not always the right one, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do with the thing you've been given is simply refuse to put it down. Have you ever met a locked door that turned out to say nothing true about you? Tell us below. Ring the bell, because moments like this, are why the camera stays on.